And welcome to the College Baseball Advisors podcast. Very happy to be a part of the CoachCast network, where coaches talk and greatness listens. I'm your host, Wayne Mazzoni. My background is 30 years as a college baseball coach and current college baseball recruiting advisor. For any of you that have any interest in seeing what I do for my service, you can visit collegebaseballadvisor.com. On today's podcast, we had Todd 𝐿𝐿𝐿, the head baseball coach at Boston College. It's quickly evident when you listen to this podcast, this is an awesome human being, right? Obviously, he's a great baseball guy, wouldn't be working at that level if he wasn't, but just the top-notch human being. I think it comes across really quickly. I really did not know much about Todd as a coach many years ago until a former player of mine, J.J. Edwards, was going to get a volunteer coaching job at Wofford College and asked if I would call Coach 𝐿𝐿𝐿 as a recommendation. I called. JJ got the position as a volunteer, went on to stay at Wofford for 11 years as Todd's assistant, and then took over the program when he went to Boston College. Interestingly, and the reason I bring that up is, amazingly, 𝐿𝐿𝐿 talks about how his biggest influence in his coaching career was actually J.J. Edwards, his assistant. And you'll hear that when they talk about their philosophy that comes out on the podcast. Really good. The other couple of takeaways from this podcast that are really helpful are that he was not a standout, unbelievable high school or college player. He even talks about his lack of confidence. He was a late bloomer. He really didn't play much as a starter in high school, of course, on a really competitive team. But it was really interesting to talk about his background out in Arizona. He went to a junior college, then went to UNC Asheville, had a couple of different coaches in his time there, played a little bit of independent ball, and then was about to get a regular job. And on the day he was supposed to go in, did not even go to that job and wound up coaching like at the high school level, and then quickly got into college and moved around, moved up, got to Wofford, eventually took over the program. And then when J.J. Edwards came in, their combined philosophy completely turned around that program and had unbelievable record in the past. I think since 2018 is when they really unbelievably took off. He's been at Boston College now for 2 years. And again, I think this is a really informative podcast with a great coach and a great person. So without further ado, here is my talk with Todd 𝐿𝐿𝐿, the head baseball coach at Boston College. Awesome. So Todd, very excited to have you here for a lot of reasons. The reason I actually enjoy doing these podcasts is like, there are people I know like you pretty well, but not all the details. And it's like, when can you get time to actually get into details with people in this crazy world of phones and recruiting and games and all that? So it's like, nice to spend a little time with you. So very excited to have you here just to kind of get in depth, because really what I know about you is mostly through J.J. Edwards, which we'll table that for a minute and we'll get to that after. But
That's right. That's right.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You grew up basically out west Scottsdale, Arizona, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And were you an all baseball kid growing up, or are you in the age of playing everything?
So I went to Catholic grammar school where we played flag football, and I played baseball as well, but I played flag football. And I went to an all-boys high school called Brophy College Prep. I started at Brophy, and I wanted to go out for freshman football. And the weight requirement for freshman football was 110 pounds, and I was 92. So as I sit here today, I'm 6'2", 200. So my size eventually came, but yeah, I was 92 pounds when I got to my freshman year in high school. So it wasn't like I could put a bag of sand in my shoes or something and fake it. So that pretty much ended my football career before it started. And then it was just baseball from there on out.
Okay. And I think I should know this, but this is just a gut guess. Are you lefty?
I'm not.
You're not? Okay. Because when I saw that your background was first base, outfield, pitcher, I'm lefty, and like that's all we could play. So that is an interesting. So when you growing up, you played all three of those?
Yeah, I started as an infielder, wasn't very athletic, couldn't move very well. Eventually got pushed to the corners. I kind of, my playing career was pretty unspectacular. I know everything's different now. Recruiting's different. Everything's different. I was playing high school baseball in the 90s, but I mean, I didn't even start on my high school team. I didn't even start on my high school team. I left Brophy. I went to Chaparral High School, and I didn't really play as a junior, didn't play as a senior. our high school coach at the time basically said, if you're not going to play 50% of the time as a senior, then we're just going to cut you, because seniors that don't play are a problem. And I remember him saying that in a team meeting. I'm like, oh, my career's over. Like, there's no chance I'm projected to play 50% of the time next year. And he kept me. I don't know why, because I ended up with like 3 innings pitched and like 6 at-bats, which I assure you was not 50%.
So do you attest that to you? Like you said, you were still, and as a freshman, you were small. Were you still undersized, or is it also, me being from the Northeast, is Arizona level of baseball just flat out legit?
I mean, it's probably a little both, right? I was undersized. I wasn't very confident. I was extremely insecure as a baseball player, which was probably my biggest hindrance. But physicality-wise, I was a little undersized, but nothing that would have held me back. And then, yeah, I mean, our team was really good. Chaparral High School was really good. Bunch of big leaguers and won a bunch of state championships. But you know, I would tell you I probably got in my own way more than anything else.
You know, it's funny you say that, because one of the other guys that, you know, you're obviously a prominent coach at Boston College in the ACC. The other guy I've had on here that is an equivalent to you, if you will, is Butch Thompson from Auburn. And Butch says exactly that. He goes, if I could do my whole playing career over, I just would have been more confident. He goes, I just was not confident as a player. And maybe we'll get to it. Maybe that's something that helps you later as a coach, to realize that's part of the game. You got to coach. But then as a guy that did not play a lot in high school, how did you go to the junior college? How did that process come about?
So my high school coach recommended me to Scottsdale Community College, and I got a book scholarship, which means I got $100. So I went over to Scottsdale Community College and, you know, was practicing. I didn't know anything. I don't know what the rules are. There was a million kids out there. It felt like, you're looking back now as a coach, it felt like 60. Felt like we had 60 kids out there. I don't know. I never counted. There were no roster limits there. You know what I mean? That wasn't a thing. I mean, I just went out there and was practicing, and I didn't know what was going on. And I actually thought I was playing pretty well for the first 6-8 weeks I was at Scottsdale. And they had a round of cuts, and they posted them in the dugout, which was like, it was bizarre, because like where our locker room was probably a good 400 or 500 yards from the field. So we just kind of walked out there, but the coach's office were in the locker room. It was kind of bizarre. He posted the cuts in the dugout, which was like 500 yards away. Like, why didn't you just post it in the building? Like, it didn't make sense. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, I made the team. Like, I'm playing well. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm like, God, that's so far to walk. Like, I shouldn't even walk out there. Like, I'm sure I'm fine. And I was like, well, I'll just go double check. And I walked out there, and my name wasn't up there. So I got cut from Scottsdale. And then there was a guy named, I'll keep his name out of it.
Okay.
So there was a guy that was my assistant coach in my summer league between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college. He was my head coach in the summer league that I was playing, and he was the assistant at South Mountain. And so when I got cut, I called him and I said, hey, can I come to South? And he's like, well, you got to talk to the head coach. Anyway, long story short, I ended up going out to South, hiding from our head coach for a good 2 months. And then eventually, you know, I don't even think I knew my name by the time we got to the first game. So I eventually just hid from our head coach, you know, as long as I could. And then eventually it was like game day, and he like finally came up to me, and I was like, oh, here we go. My career's about to end. And he's like, hey, we got, what number do you want? And I was like, so petrified. I didn't even know what to say. And he's like, 19 or 29. And I just like stared at him, like didn't know what to do. And he's like, 29's a better number. And I was like, that was it. So I was at South, and then I eventually, you know, kind of got the hang of it a little bit. And I wasn't a great player at South, but I was good enough, and had a few offers coming out. Then I ended up at Asheville, and so that was that. But my career almost ended about 15 times between my sophomore year and my freshman year of college. So fortunately,
well, first of all, this is awesome already. I'm learning stuff I didn't know, but you also bring up something that, you know, is a different world from the East Coast here. So I had, 2 months ago, Jerry Weinstein on, when he was talking about when he was at Sac City, and he goes, we had 80 kids on the team in the fall, 3 fields. I had a golf cart. We would drive around watching. He goes, every guy got 200 at-bats in the fall. and I'm like, wow, what a different world. And I don't know if that's still going on at JUCOs out in California, where you just play a ton more than most kids seem to do here in the Northeast. But so now this is obviously a big question I have to ask you. Probably in your position been asked many times. I mean, how the heck do you get to UNC Asheville from being out West Coast?
Yeah, I mean, we did the VHS tapes and sent them all over, and now it's emails and links, right? Then it was letters and padded envelopes and VHS tapes that you sent all over the place. And I give 𝐸𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿 a ton of credit. He was a phenomenal recruiter. He was just a diligent, workaholic, relentless recruiter, and saw the video and called me. And I mean, I didn't even visit. I didn't even visit. So I took a couple other visits, and they were there, and maybe I think I got $3,000 to go to Asheville, and they gave me an opportunity, and that was that, man. And went out there and enjoyed my experience there for 2 years.
Was just the moving across country a huge difference, or was it, hey, I'm in school playing ball, this is kind of what I'm used to?
I will tell you that was the hardest decision I ever made and the best decision I ever made. Because like I said, I was pretty insecure. I was pretty unconfident, and, moving across the country away from your family. I mean, I didn't have a cell phone when I went to college, right? Like that was, I had no connection back to Phoenix. You were just there. It was like, you just kind of got dropped in the wild, and had a pretty rough first year, trying to assimilate and trying to get along, and, made a lot of mistakes personality wise with, I just didn't do a good job of blending in, right? I was just so scared. I was, so nervous. I just didn't do a good job of making friends and doing those type of things. And then, I thought about leaving after my junior year, and then we switched head coaches, which had nothing to do with me wanting to leave. Switched head coaches, and I just said, if I'm going back, man, I'm doing this totally different. And I went back, and was 2 feet into the deep end, and yeah, it made the world a difference. And that was the most fun year I ever had playing, was my last year at Asheville.
Was that when you said the change? Did Mike Roberts come in or leave?
That was Mike Roberts' only year.
Only year there, right?
Yep. So when he came in, Coach Hillier left to go to Duke after the '99 season, and Mike Roberts came in the 2000 season, and that was his only year as head coach, was my senior year. So
yeah, but was it? Did that have a positive effect, or was it you just deciding that you're going to be all in?
Yeah, it was just like I said, Coach Hillier. I mean, I enjoyed playing for Coach Hillier. He was hard nosed. He was tough. I really enjoyed that. Right. I that was what my high school coach was. That was what my junior college coach was. That was what I knew. Right. I knew hard nosed guys that, really wanted to push you and really wanted you to work. But when Coach Roberts got there, if anybody's ever met Mike Roberts, he's like the most unique individual on the face of the earth. But it was just a little bit different. And, he just Mike Roberts has a different way of looking at everything in this world. So, I was good with Coach Hillier. Like I said, I enjoyed playing for him. I enjoyed playing for Coach Roberts. My issues was never, the coaching. It was just, it was me, right? Like I just needed to change. But when Coach Roberts got there, we were just a bunch of ragtag island of misfit toys, and everybody played everywhere. And he just did all this non-traditional stuff with our pitching and non-traditional stuff with our lineups and the way we ran our offense. It was just, and we just kind of bought into it because, we just weren't very talented. And it was just the first time I ever really saw somebody saying, okay, we're going to try to cheat the system, right? Like we're just not going to go toe to toe with the people that were in our league at the time. And, he's like, yeah, we got to do something different. And that was like the first time it opened my eyes to, okay, there's more than one way to play this game.
I mean, we'll get to it, but would you say that's had an influence on your coaching career?
For sure. And then, then I got into coaching, and, the places I went as an assistant coach, I would tell you were all pretty traditional, a couple outliers here or there. I thought, I got a chance to work with Dan Roselle at Gardner-Webb for a couple years, who's now the pitching coach at Kentucky. And at the time, I didn't know what I was watching, right? At the time, I didn't know I was watching a 26, 27-year-old who was on his way to being the best pitching coach in college baseball. I didn't know that at the time. I just thought Dan was really diligent, insanely organized, hard on his kids, phenomenal recruiter, knew what he wanted, spoke up when needed to, put his head down when needed to. I just didn't know what I was watching at the time, right? I just didn't know I was watching, again, a 26, 27-year-old that was turning himself into the best pitching coach in the country. I didn't know what I was watching. So that had a huge influence on me as I evaluate pitching coaches, right? When we hire pitching coaches, like I have Dan in the back of my mind. And when Mike was talking about playing this thing non-traditionally, I went through my assistant coaching stints and my assistant coaching stint at Wofford. And then, my first few years at Wofford, we were just getting our face kicked in. And all of a sudden I was like, yeah, like, what am I thinking? Like, we can't play like College of Charleston. We can't play like Georgia Southern. We can't play like Elon. Like, we got to do something different. And that was when JJ and I, he was there for an assistant a couple years, and we were like, all right, we're doing this completely different. And we went into the 2013 season doing something completely different. And that honestly was the first step in projecting that program forward.
All right. So that was going to be a question I'll get to. I want to ask you one before we get right back to that, which is, when did Todd Interdonato know he was going to be a college coach? Did you know from an early age this is what you want to do? Did you think you were going to go a different path? Was there ever a doubt what you were going to do? Like JJ, which we'll talk about in a minute, I knew from the second I met him he wanted to be a college coach. So were you in that vein or not really?
So I had coaches telling me I should coach. And I'm like, do they think I'm like a smartass, like questioning what they're doing? Like, yeah, you should coach if you think this is so easy, right? Are they saying it like that, or are they saying it, hey, like, you should coach? And then I was like, well, yeah, they're telling me I should coach because I can't play. Like, I'm not very good, right? Like, so yeah, but that was, so I don't know. I got dumped out of independent ball pretty quickly after I was there. I was in Evansville, Indiana. I was there for like 6 weeks. I got dumped out. And I came back and I went back home to Phoenix, and, I was like, all right, well, my playing career's over. Let me go get a job. And, I had an undergrad degree in business. And so I started interviewing all over the city in Phoenix, and I got a job. I remember I got a job in this marketing agency, making $30,000 a year with benefits, which at the time was a really good starting salary, and had a chance to take more. And the guy that I was going to be working for was a Division I basketball player. I was like, okay, this is great. And, I interviewed on like Wednesday, Thursday or something, and I got the job. He called me. He's like, hey, I want you to start on Monday. I was like, okay, great. Like, I'll be there Monday. And I've told the story a handful of times. So Monday morning, I wake up at like 6:30. For whatever it's worth, in order to get to this job on time, I probably need to leave my house at like 7:15. So I wake up at like 6:15 or 6:30, and it's like 7:15, and I'm like sitting at the kitchen counter. It's like 7:15, 7:20, 7:30, 7:40, and I'm like just like stuck to the counter. And my dad is sitting next to me, and my dad just goes, well, the least you should do is just call him. Right? Like, he didn't say like, why are you not going? Like, what's happening? He just goes, the least you should do is call him. And so I called the guy. I said, hey man, I'm not going to make it in. I think I left a message, and he called me back or something. And my dad's like, why didn't you go? This is like probably like 9 o'clock now at this point. And I go, man, if I went for a day, I'd go for a week. And if I went for a week, I'd go for a month. And if I went for a month, I'd go for a year. And at that point, it's just what I'm doing for the rest of my life. And I can't do it. And he goes, well, what are you going to do? I go, I have no idea. And so I called my high school coach, and I said, hey, can I coach the summer team? And he said, yeah, we'll give you a $50 gift card to Sports Authority. He said, and he goes, but I expect you to buy a Fungo with it. So it wasn't really, so maybe I made like $7. So I coached that high school team. I was the pitching coach on that high school team that year for maybe like 6 weeks in the summer. And I'm like, this is it. Like, this is what I'm doing. So yeah, I was really close to my playing career ending a bunch. And I've been really close to my coaching career ending a bunch too. So, but fortunately I'm here.
It's funny. It's really a recurring theme. And I think it's maybe just the world of baseball. Yeah, this could happen in other sports. I think in football and basketball, when you get a starting job, when you're a quality control coach, the lowest guy at the pole at USC, you're still probably making 65 grand. When you're the lowest guy in the poll in college baseball, you make like $40. So it is tough. A lot of people have faced like, hey, I get this good job, and justifying my expenses and my degree, and then you go. But coaching is a passion, and obviously you have that, and then stayed with it. So back to kind of JJ now, and this is more about you than JJ, but I mean, JJ was that kid who didn't have an incredible amount of talent. For those that don't know, JJ Edwards, who's now the head coach at Wofford, who was at Sacred Heart when I was there, he just outworked everybody. He, IQ'd, he couldn't run, he couldn't do a lot of things. He just hit, 72 hits his senior year and 71 singles. But you know what? When you're batting third and you hit 360, and you have a good at bat and you hit a lot of singles, you're a very valuable player in college baseball. That's right. And I just remember, and this is the part of being an older person with Gray that I love. It's a stage in my life I'm so happy with. You get to see these big picture things. And I can remember like yesterday, him wanting to coach, him looking for any opportunity, and me being on the phone with you, and you'd be like, hey, is this dude, like, is he going to show up? Is he responsible? Is it? And I put my reputation on, like, he's the guy you got to get. And obviously, people well, and quickly, you two hit it off as people, but also as coaches. So if you don't mind going back to, that 2013, you guys basically said, hey, we can't go on being traditional. If you don't mind, what were a couple of the things that you recall? I know base running was a huge thing. Was there other things that you said, this is where we will get our edge?
Yeah. So this is the question I ask like every young coach. Okay. So whatever, I'll use this example, right? Like, okay, what was the team you played on last year? Like, oh, I played at, school X. Like, okay, what was your record? We were 30-26. Like, okay. I go, all right. If that team with that exact talent in that league, if your pitchers never walked a single batter, if your defense never made a single error, and your batters never on offense struck out, what would that team's record have been? Like, oh, it would have been 56-0. And so you're like, okay, let's just do that. Like, let's just do that, right? Because we're all chasing velo, we're all chasing power, we're all chasing tools, right? Everybody just chases tools, right? You got to evaluate, like, can he hit? Can he run? Like, you're just chasing tools. And so we were like, okay, let's teach our guys to get the ball and play with 2 strikes. Let's, all right, the base running thing was, I was kind of messing around with some things in my head that I hadn't really crystallized at the time. And there was no way that we were going to get to the other side without just doing it, without just putting it on the field. We went all in on that. We basically started recruiting differently with who we went after in terms of pitchers. Like, we just started going after strike throwers. Hey, the kid that's 5'10", that's 85-87. I mean, we started looking at, oh, this guy pitched 40 innings at his high school, and he's thrown another 40 innings in perfect game tournaments, and he's got 8 walks. Like, yes, let's take that kid, right? Let's take that kid, as opposed to the kid who's 6'2" that's ran it up to 91. And you go look at his numbers, you're like, well, that kid's thrown 60 innings and he's walked 55. Like, yeah. So we just started basically changing all that, and then as that started to progress forward, we started looking for those players. Right? We started looking for players to fit this idea of how we wanted to play. And essentially it just came back to strike throwers with 1 really good off-speed pitch and athletic position players. And the further and further we got into it, the more and more stubborn we got.
Right.
That was the big thing. And to get to JJ's point, or the point about JJ was, had he left, which he had plenty of opportunities to do, right? Had he left at any point during my tenure at Wofford, we may have had another guy in my ear saying, hey, let's veer off. Let's take a turn. Let's do this. Let's do that, right? Like, let's do all this. But he and I were just like pumping the same message back and forth to each other. And that was really what was really fun, was you had 2 very like-minded individuals believing in the same thing. And, JJ's going out and he's evaluating these guys, and he's recognizing these guys, and he's like, okay, this is our kind of guy. And then we get on the field and we're coaching him the same way. So, he was, I know everybody, when people say like, hey, people ask me all the time, like, who's the biggest influence in your career? Like, who's the biggest influence in your coaching career? I feel like every time people ask a coach that question, they always look up. Hey, I worked for this guy, right? And he did this, right? Like Steve Traylor, the guy I went to work for at Wofford, huge influence, right? Mike Roberts, huge influence. Some of the guys that I know in college coaching that have helped me get some of these jobs, huge influence. My biggest influence was the assistant coach I had. So, but again, everybody's like, hey, who's your biggest influence? Like, mine is a younger guy. Right. And that to me is where, like, how special that relationship JJ and I had and still have is I would, like, people say like, oh, who do you owe your career to? They will name another head coach who brought them along. Right. I will name an assistant coach who pushed me forward.
I mean, that's really, really awesome. Really, really. I mean, what a relationship, and it's funny because for him too, he could have been in a situation as a coach where he probably could have also gotten fired because he could be annoying because he sticks to his guns. Like, he believes what he believes. So if you two didn't have and by the way, he's a quality baseball guy. He's a quality human being. We know that for sure. But right, he could be in a spot where he would be saying to a head coach, no, we got to do it my way. And the coach would say, get out of here. But you two, I love what you just said. It's tremendous. And then, of course, obviously now not only you're recruiting a certain profile of guys, then obviously you're coaching them up that way too. So the guys getting more innings on the mound are the strike throwers. The guys that throw hard but don't throw strikes don't get innings. So it's a whole culture that builds upon itself. What season for you did those results take effect of that philosophy?
So we started that in 2013. In 2014, I thought the program flipped in 2014 on Friday night against Georgia Southern against Sam Howard. That was when, like, that was the program. It just flipped. And we ended up winning that series against Georgia Southern. We finished above 500 for the first time in 2014, won 39 games in 2015. And then we were like having like middling success because it was like, now you were like there. In 2018, we were picked to finish last in the league, which was ninth, I think, at the time. And we ended up winning a series on the road to finish third. And that was like Wofford College finishing third in the 𝐃𝐨𝐽. I mean, you just could never even envision it. And then from 2018, my last year was 2023. From 2018 to 2023, we never finished below third, which was insane. We had a streak going that was my most proud statistic when we were there for like a 10-year stretch or maybe like a 12-year stretch from 2014 to 2023. So I guess maybe 11 seasons. We were the only team in the 𝐃𝐭 at any point to never finish below 500 in league play.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive. And in a really tough conference. Yeah.
In a tough league where, guys would win it, but then they would finish 13 and 17, right? They would have that down year. But we ran it like 10 consecutive years where we were the only team in the league that did not finish below 500 one season in conference play, which was, to me, that's just the mark of sustainability and doing things the right way, like you're saying, Maz, right? Like the culture, and it worked, right? It was these crazy ideas that we had all these years ago. It worked.
So before we talk a little BC stuff, because Wofford is obviously special. It's spent a long time there. Obviously, JJ's there. I wound up visiting with my son and seeing the place, and always knew the name and you guys, but the place is really special. Just briefly talk about, because if you go walk around the street here in Connecticut where I am and you say Wofford, baseball guys know it because you put them on the map, but it's an incredible school. Just talk briefly about what Wofford has to offer.
Yeah, it's a small school. The campus is unbelievably beautiful. The people are amazing. The facilities are great. It's just we set out we set out to be, if you were an academic student and you were a mid-major baseball player, we wanted that to be your number one destination, right? We understand that if your option was between Vandy and Wofford, right, we got you. If your option was between Duke and Wofford, like, we got it, right? But if your options were Wofford, Furman, Davidson, Samford, Ivy League school, Patriot League school, like, we wanted to be the number one option for mid-majors. And that's what I will tell you. And with JJ still there and the guys that are there, I would tell you that's what it is, right? I understand the lure of Power 4 baseball. And I mean, hell, it got me, right? So I understand the lure of Power 4 baseball, but man, if you're an academic kid, I don't care where you are in the country, like, that is an academic kid that your options are mid-major and you're 1,200 plus SAT, like, that's your spot.
Yeah. No, that's well said. It is a special place. And, now in doing what I'm doing with helping kids get recruited, I got my first guy, a 2026 left-handed pitcher committed there. And I'm very happy. And he had options up this way, like you described. And he went to a visit to Wofford and said, it's over. This is where I want to be. So
that's right.
Obviously now at BC, a worldwide known school, ACC baseball, tremendous facilities up there. Are you now done with year 2? In your mind, is it the same job of head coaching of college baseball, or is it a world of difference being at a new institution like that? What's the same and what's different, I guess, is my question.
So, yeah, there's some things that I was really correct on. My preconceived notions coming in here was like, okay, the game is the game, right? And I was correct on that. The game is the game, right? Yeah, the talent's up and the officiating's up and the number of people that are watching you is up and the facilities are up, like, all that. But I feel the same standing on the top step of the dugout, right? On the top step of the dugout, on the road or here at home, I feel the same. We have to make this play. We have to make this pitch. This is where we have to take a risk. This is how we have to, this is to me, like, the game is the game. And so that is very similar. The talent obviously is up. You feel like, I mean, I don't know if you go through a weekend where you're not trying to get out a first rounder or try to score runs off a first rounder. That's right. That's certainly different. But again, it feels the same, right? I don't know how else to describe it. It just feels the same. As far as the totality of the job, the way I've described it is being a head coach, it's all the same tentacles, right? It's recruiting, it's admissions, it's handling your payroll, handling your budget, meeting with alumni, coaching your players. Like, those things are all the same. The tentacles are all the same. However, I will tell you here, with how strong our alumni base is, how strong the institution is, how powerful this logo is in this region, those tentacles of alumni, community relations, building relationships, being involved with people who are connected to BC, that tentacle takes a lot more of my time than it ever did. And I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy getting to meet the people that I get to meet. And there's just some fascinating human beings that are Boston College grads that are wildly successful, that have unbelievable stories of grit and hard work, and they made it, right? Whether they're an entrepreneur or whether they're in investment banking or whether they're in law or medicine, it's just, yeah, BC people are incredible. So diving more into that area of head coaching has been really fun.
Does that ever get frustrating where you want to be in a cage, you want to be in a pen, you want to be working on something, and that's taking you away? Or is that you knew what you signed up for when you took the job?
I feel like I have always done a good job of, when I'm on the field, I'm on the field, right? So my frame of mind is, I walk on the field, I put my phone on the top step of the dugout, and my wife has our athletic trainer's number. So if there's an emergency at home with my wife or my children, and so that's just gone, right? Like, I just don't have that, right? You go in the cage and my phone is in another room when I'm in the cage. And the thing that, all those guys understand is if they call me or don't get me, I'm like, hey, sorry, I was on the field. They're like, no, we got it. Like, that's your job.
Right.
So it's just being able to compartmentalize.
That's smart. Yeah.
It irks me when I see coaches on the field with their phone in their back pocket.
Oh my, yeah, totally agree. Or worse, on it. I mean, which I see, which drives me absolutely crazy. Yes.
Yeah.
One question I have to ask you, and I'm curious to see what you think. I mean, as a guy that grew up out west in Arizona and then went to college, North Carolina is not exactly, it's obviously mid-Atlantic, and down in Wofford, South Carolina, you got good weather. Clearly, half the games you play, you're on the road. Have you adjusted to, 2025 has, I don't want to curse on this pot, it's been awful for weather. Yeah. Is that something, are you able to just deal and go, listen, I'll just bundle up and this is it? Or are you going, man, when is it getting warm around here?
Yeah, probably all of it, right? It was over the weekend. It's obviously Father's Day over the weekend. I got 3 brothers, 2 of them are fathers. And, we like FaceTime and they're on the golf course in Phoenix. And they go, do you have a hoodie on? I go, yeah, man, it's 58 here today. They're like, it's June. This was Saturday. It's like, it's June, whatever. I go, yeah, it's 58 here today. I've said this. The facilities we have here are more equipped to handle this weather than the facilities we had at Wofford to handle that weather.
It's a great point.
So, when it snows here, we have this unbelievable building, 6 cages wide, a turf field. In the winter, we have an indoor football field that we can go inter squad in. Like we could just handle it, right? And I know JJ's on the crusade down there to getting a covered space or an indoor space, which they need so poorly, right? But we were down there in January so many years, and it's, it gets into the 40s or gets into the 50s and it rains, and we were driving off campus to hit inside.
Right.
So, we're here. It's like, we need to hit inside. Like our guys walk upstairs and they hit in the cages. So yeah, that to me is being on the road a lot is different. I don't mind it. I like traveling. I'm just kind of a traveler. When my wife and I have time off, we always travel. So like, I enjoy that. The big difference between being here and being there was, when I was there, you're gone for 2 days. You leave on a Friday morning, you're home Sunday night. And my family never traveled with me when I was there. Here, they travel with me a decent bit, which is fun.
Right.
So, and the girls are getting older. Our girls are about to be 11 and 9. They're 10 and 9, and they're independent people. And they were at the ACC tournament with us this year, and staying in the same room. But they're like, "All right, Dad, we're going to the pool." I'm like, "All right, I'm going to go do scouting meetings and team meetings and this and that." So it's been fun having them along for the ride.
That's really cool. That's nice when they're that age and they can travel, and that's really neat. All right, 2 more things I want to ask you.
Yeah.
You kind of alluded to this earlier about kind of your recruiting philosophy, but that was obviously you were talking about how you were really building and turning things around at Wofford. Is what you guys are looking for at BC the same? And meaning, are you still in that? Hey, a strike thrower. Yeah, the velo may be now 88 to 90. An athletic, is it still the same profile you're looking for, maybe with a bigger, better body? Tell me about what you guys look for when you're recruiting.
Yeah, very similar thought process, very similar profiles of guys that we want to do. Blending in, Ryan's finishing his second year, our pitching coach here. He has some core beliefs that he really values, that he's been really successful with. Everybody asks me like, hey, what are you looking for in a recruit? And the way I always think about it is, what are you willing to give up? Right? Because everybody wants the 5-tool player. That's really tough. That's really committed. That's a great teammate. Everybody wants that, right? So to me, it's not what you're looking for. It's just what you're willing to give up.
Right.
And so for us, we're just not willing to give up on the athleticism. We're not willing to give up on the ability to throw strikes. And now here, and I think this is just a college baseball thing. I don't think this is an ACC thing. But the physicality of these guys that we're playing against every weekend is just, it's just getting more and more every year, right? And so I have always very much believed in the weight room, but every year I just believe in it more and more. And physicality doesn't mean you have to be 6'3" and 215, right? You can still be really physical at 5'10", right? You could still be really physical at 5'10". And we have some players that we've recruited here over the last couple of years, and guys that are early in their career here where, yeah, they're not 6'3", 6'4" on the position player side, but you stand next to him and you're like, oh, okay, like this dude is really strong. This dude's really fast. Like this guy hits the ball at 110 miles an hour. Like there are some things in there that you really look for. So I think that's evolving in terms of you can't just be wiry and fast, right? You've got to be able to be athletic, but you also have to be able to hit the ball at 105 miles an hour. You also have to be able to lift X and clean Y and bench, like there's just some bars that you got to clear there in terms of physicality. And same with pitching, right? Same with pitching.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. Watching last year's Super Regionals College World Series, the same this year, which obviously is going on now. You're right. That is the thing that jumps out to me. I coached my life at, mid, lower majors. The difference is just the absolute pure strength and physicality. Like even like second basemen are like, they're adult males that are just strong. Like I said, they may not have to necessarily be tall, but they are strong and they run, and it's really impressive. You're right. It's a huge piece of the puzzle. The other part then is, and I kind of asked this to everyone, but in the school you're at and the position you're in, the transfer piece, is it something you are happy that is part of your life now? Is it something you wish you could go back 5 years and it wasn't? How do you view guys coming and going? And I know this. I got out before it really was a huge thing. It would kind of overwhelm me a little bit because I get attached to guys and et cetera, et cetera. But what do you think about this landscape of transferring?
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword, right? Because, you finish a year and you're like, all right, here's a hole in our roster. Let's try to go fill it with somebody who's experienced, right? So that's a positive, right? It's the negative in terms of either you are making the decision that a kid needs to leave, or the kid is making the decision that he needs to leave. And I don't really love that, right? I don't really love that. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword. It is what it is. I think we overcooked it from a college baseball standpoint, right? I think we just overcooked it. I mean, we did the COVID extra year, NIL, and the portal without the year of residency all at the same time.
Exactly. Yes.
Maybe we should have done like one every 3 years, right? Maybe we should have given everybody the year back and then let that marinate for a little bit, clear out the extra year of COVID, then maybe did, the NIL revenue sharing piece now that it is, then maybe the 34 scholarships, then maybe the portal, but so I think I'm very fortunate here that our players just deeply believe in Boston College and Boston College baseball.
Right.
And I think we don't have the major turnover that a lot of programs do. We have some, right? We have some. There's no doubt about it. And, nobody's the exception to having to make tough decisions or having a kid make a tough, nobody's the exception to that.
Right.
So, but I do feel like we are on the lesser end of the spectrum of it. So I do feel fortunate, but that was one of the reasons that this job was so appealing, was you want to build a program on top of the institution, not in spite of the institution.
Wow. Well said.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's the, the institution that BC is, that Wofford is, that so many other programs, look at what Corbin did. I mean, people that are in college baseball now don't remember Vanderbilt was the laughing stock of the SEC when he got that job.
Right.
But he built a program on top of one of the best institutions in the world. Right. That's just really, really cool to see. And there are a lot of good institutions, but you want to be able to build a program on top of one, not in spite of one.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly well said. All right. Final thing. And I appreciate your time. And, I know there's so many demands on you, is you mentioned at the beginning, as a player growing up, not a lot of confidence, right? Do you make that part of, your coaching style? Are you big on culture, mental game, toughness, grit, confidence? Do you feel that's a big piece of your role?
I think it's just who I am now, right? I think that's just who I am. And, I think that I understand that human beings evolve, not just players, right? But just human beings evolve, right? I'm sure there's some guy in investment banking that is saying, man, these new young interns just aren't the same as they were 15 years ago, right? It's not baseball players, right? It's just the evolution of the human being. But one constant this is now my 25th year in coaching, the number one thing at the forefront of every player's mind is they want to get better. Right? They want to get better. And if you are not providing that for them, they will leave, and they should.
Right.
And that is my number one objective every single day coming in here is, how do you make these guys better? How do you make this team better? And a lot of times it's not butterflies and rainbows, right? A lot of times it is hard coaching, tough coaching, putting guys in uncomfortable positions, letting them get through it. That builds confidence, right? I feel like I was a victim my whole career of everybody telling me how good I could be, right? Man, you have so much potential. Man, you could do this if you did this. And I was just pumped with positivity and these words that were like this fictitious stuff that was like floating out in space. And really what I wish I had was somebody just putting blinders on me and pushing me and challenging me and getting rid of all the external stuff that I was dealing with. Cause that's really where I was locked up. I was locked up with external. That's what I was locked up with. And I had coaches that were really hard on me. I had coaches that pushed me, but man, I wish they were harder, and I wish they pushed me more. I wish they challenged me more individually in there. And yeah, I think our job as coaches is to make guys better. And I think that's job number one. And then I think job number two is to make sure that they know you're doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
Yeah. So that to me is, I was sitting around, we had some graduating seniors over at the house on Saturday night that are guys local. And I just said to him, I go, man, I love when you guys text me at night. Like, I love when you guys are watching a big league game and they're like, hey, did you see the play with the Dodgers Giants? Like, I love that. Right. And they were like, really? I go, yeah, just because that's the whole objective is, I know I'm hard on you on the field and I know I'm pushing you on the field, but for you guys to be pushed and to be challenged, but then also late at night to be like, yo, T.I., like, what do you got on this? Right. That shows me I'm getting both ends of it. Right. So those are really cool moments.
No, that's really awesome. I mean, just a quick final story. I remember this, and I'll never forget, just based on what you said. This is 15 years ago. I'm doing a first lesson with a kid pitching, and got video analysis, and I go, dude, this is a mess. And I wasn't trying to be. I go, this is. I mean, we got to overhaul everything. This is it. And he like starts to cry, and I go, dude, what's going? Like, I'm sorry. He goes, no, everyone's told me I'm fine, and I know I'm not. This is the first time I actually am getting told that I really need to get better. And I never forget that because he was just being fluffed and he hated it. And then when I kind of ripped him, he was like, oh, thank God, So you're right. They want to be pushed, and sometimes it's tough, but I'm sure years down the line when you get those texts and those invites to weddings and et cetera, that's what it's all. That's ultimately what coaching's all about. You're trying to make better human beings, and that's why you're good at what you do. So, T.I., I so appreciate you joining me in your busy schedule, and I'm sure I'll talk to you by text and phone, and I'll run into you in person. But thanks so much for joining me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This was great. And like you said, now we got to know each other a little bit better, right? Which is
exactly
what you do anyway.
Exactly. All right, man. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, thanks, Matt.
All right, thanks, T.I. Take care. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the College Baseball Advisors podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's talk with Todd Interdonato, the head baseball coach at Boston College. Hopefully it was evident that this is a really good baseball guy, but really, more importantly, a better human being, which what makes him a really great baseball coach. He talks so much about how his job is to get individual players better, and that's what basically gets him going every day, is the development part of the job. So really enjoyed this conversation. Have some really great future guests lined up that are coming up that are of the same level as Coach Interdonato. So again, this is Wayne Mazzoni. I run College Baseball Advisors after 30 years coaching college baseball. For more information about what I do, feel free to visit collegebaseballadvisor.com, and happy to be part of the Coaches Cast Network, where coaches talk and greatness listens. So until I see you next time, have a great week, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.